Hey everybody, it's Jillian. Good morning. Wow. So this morning my body's releasing, I woke up a little stuffy nose, and my body is releasing more excess viruses, more excess pathogens, which aren't really pathogens, it's just the excess minerals that the body doesn't need. Because if you have a very low functioning immune system, you're going to have a sluggish highway system that releases any excess. And then when you accumulate excess minerals, it causes an imbalance and it causes weaknesses. And then the viruses that you're exposed to every single day will then exploit those weaknesses. So I've been noticing that I've been releasing something. I got some skin issues that are coming to surface. Um, yesterday I only slept for about an hour in the afternoon, didn't sleep twice because the last couple weeks I have been dealing with some healing symptoms. I've been releasing some kind of virus in my body. It's a trip. And I noticed it in my dreams. You saw the transmission yesterday when I talked about Jeffrey Epstein and making that connection that we have trolls in our society on Facebook as well as on the internet that emulate those characteristics of a Jeffrey Epstein who exploits their power on the weak population. And that comes from an out of control virus or viruses on a weak body. And so what do these people who have weak bodies, what do? They go and infect and try to destroy all living things. And so it comes out and manifests in different ways. You have people like Jeffrey Epstein, you have people like the trolls on the internet, you have abusers out there in the world that perpetrate domestic violence, and you have victims who allow that to happen, and then they turn into abusers themselves because they haven't figured out how to break the programming. So I finally, with the J juice, broke the viral programming in my body that caused all these weaknesses, caused the PMDD, caused the feelings of anxiety around certain things, around certain triggers. I'm finally way more relaxed and very strong with dealing with all the different pathogens that are out there. And it's not really pathogens, it's just things that are always going to come at you. And how your internal universe is based upon, well, how you deal with all of the flack that comes at you, good or bad, is relative to how well balanced your internal universe is. Okay, so you can always convert whatever energy is thrown at you into whatever the state that your body is in. And so this is why we can't really say what's good and bad energy out there, because it's all relative to the state of what we're in, as well as the state of the person that is projecting their stuff onto you, regardless of what it is. So it's like you can't even say good or bad. Now, you can if it comes from the standpoint of life and death, but that still is relative to your understanding what causes life and what causes death, and that is based upon a very basic foundation of rules that we have to all go by. If we don't, we have chaos. Okay, understanding the laws of the immune system, understanding the laws of biochemistry, understanding the laws of chemistry and the universe. And that is housed in academia. It's housed on these government articles. Okay, PubMed, the National Institute of Health, Medical News Today, WebMD, sometimes even NBC. Yes, there was an article from NBC about the Ebola virus spreading. Now, it's not as bad as they're making it out to be, but it's still something they're concerned about because they know that we have weak populations out there in the Congo and all the outskirts and all the different countries that surround it. And people are mobile. There's people from the Congo are exchange students in some of the states. Okay. And they're talking about, they're giving you a warning saying, hey, this stuff is getting out. It's going to be an issue in the future, if not already. and they talked about electrolytes as some of the ways to counter the symptoms of Ebola. That's huge when NBC mentions electrolytes, because that's really predominantly what J juice is made up of, is electrolytes, the right probiotic, and nutrients that are broken down to a pre-digested state, so your body doesn't have to break it down, and then your body absorbs it and then attacks the viruses and strengthens your weaknesses, so that way any of this viral programming that's out there is not going to exploit the weaknesses in your body and that to then cause cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autism. And so what we've established is what life is meant to be is to be able to protect yourself, so you're not relying on somebody else being, to do what you should know how to do as far as feed yourself, clothe yourself, be relatively self-sufficient relative to your society, and be able to work at some kind of job, whether it's something that you do on the internet or you just go out and do a job, and understand what it takes to thrive in our society without relying on somebody else predominantly. Obviously, I rely on the government to make sure the streets are paved, to make sure that the car that I have is relatively safe. Okay, so there are some things that I rely on the government, but I can feed myself, I can clothe myself, I can live alone and not worry about robbers because I can protect myself. I don't worry about the scammers that come through my phone or on the internet because I know and understand these are scammers, and I don't entertain scammers. But if somebody out there that doesn't have the cognitive ability to be able to protect themselves, clothe themselves, work some kind of job in some way, that is someone that is not really exemplifying what an entity needs to be in this world to be able to adapt to its environment. And right now we're seeing people who are only adapting to the environment for a very short amount of time, and they're already exhibiting characteristics of somebody on a very fast death trajectory. I'm already seeing family members, in-laws, that are succumbing to staph infections. Okay, to where now they're in the ER. Remember I talked about the staph infection and that J juice can basically attack the bacteria that's on the body that creates the staph infection? Well, it took a turn for the worse. The poor lady is now in the hospital because she took the antibiotics that the doctor gave her. She listened to her doctor, which is what we say to do if you don't know what you're doing. But the antibiotics was not enough. And so now she's in the hospital because she let that staph infection go out of control, and there was no doctor that can give her any kind of antibiotic to help her deal with that. And so she's like on some kind of like, she's in the ER getting stabilized. And if they hadn't picked her up and brought her to the hospital, she would have been dead. I tried to get a hold of her and tell her, just, if anything, just put the J juice on the outside topically. You don't have to drink it, just use it topically. But she wouldn't even answer my phone. And now she's in the hospital. Her sister already died from cancer a couple years ago. The father already died from cancer a couple years ago. It's being passed down in families because nobody is breaking the programming. And I'm here saying, hey, you don't have to drink it right off the bat. Just put it topically on parts of your body. Drink them maybe a tiny bit, a little bit. Get some nutrition. Get some electrolytes. It falls on deaf ears. And I understand that because not everybody is ready to heal. But when your back's against the wall, so and I'm not really like upset. I mean, I am in a way because I feel bad for this family because they've had so many deaths in the last, like, ever since I was married. It started off with the father, then it went to the daughter, which is the sister, and now it's with the other sister, and it's going to keep going down the line. I'm watching one family being totally just eradicated by this generational virus programming that is weakening the body, causing now earlier and earlier death. If you already been diagnosed with diabetes at an early age, like age 30, and you already have a history of cancer, disease, and chronic illness in your family, you are looking at something going to trigger in the next 5, 10, 20 years if you don't change the programming. It's going to be so predictable for some of you, and it sucks to be right. I don't want to be right in my predictions, but we're already seeing the patterns. And if you don't understand and see the patterns, you're not going to know from one day to the next what's going to trigger because you're oblivious to how this stuff works. Okay? So family medical history is based upon the viruses being passed down, and nobody's changing the program and strengthening the weaknesses. And then it's happening. Every generation is a weaker generation, which is why these antibiotics and these holistic treatments that are being administered by these holistic professionals in different countries are not effective. And that's why the FDA is cracking down on the holistic market, on the holistic professionals, trying to apply an old programming from like 20 years ago onto bodies that cannot withstand the major amount of natural antibiotics as well as the synthetic from the lab. Because the cannabis and the dandelion root and the baking soda and the kombuchas and the apple cider vinegars are no different than the synthetic antibiotics. They can be just as strong, if not stronger, because when you think it's natural, you're going to apply way more of it, and it's really inappropriate on a very weak body. And so this is why Monsanto and the whole Roundup is now under fire, because 20 years ago, 40 years ago, it was not a problem because we had stronger bodies 40 years ago. Why people are living longer today, it's from back in the 1940s to now, is because their bodies were already strong to begin with. And that's why you're seeing people living to be about, 90 or 80 in my parents' generation. But you're seeing people in my generation contracting cancer, disease, and chronic illness at an earlier age, because every generation is compounding the weaknesses. And then you're going to see the next generation trigger cancer, disease, and chronic illness at an earlier age. It's going to shorten their lifespan. And then you're going to have people reproducing themselves out of existence because they're not fixing the programming. So this is why. So I was reading an article about this lady in the Philippines who had to shut down her practice. People are saying, oh yeah, it's big pharma, this big pharma, all these doctors are dying, these holistic doctors are dying, da, da, da. Yeah, they're dying from their own methodologies that are antiquated, because you cannot apply the same programming back then to people who have very weak bodies today. That's what people don't understand, is what you bring to the table is going to determine how your body is going to respond to all of these natural remedies. If you catch your cancer, disease, and chronic illness early on, chemotherapy, cannabis, any alternative remedy is going to be helpful if you catch it early on and you have a relatively strong body. But people who have been diagnosed with stage 1 cancer, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, now trying to go to some CHIPSA, okay, which is that thing in Mexico, applying the Gerson method, paying tens of thousands of dollars, or somebody going applying somebody with baking soda on a very weak body, somebody going taking mass amounts of cannabis oil on a very weak body. Guess what? You've now weakened the body to then now have more viruses and more things in your body be exploited by the viruses, the pathogens, parasites, all of that stuff, because you're dealing with an antibiotic programming. All the medications. So I understand people have to take these medications to stabilize them, but that does further degrade the body because you're not implementing the right programming to strengthen the body, so you don't need these medications. That's what people fail to understand. And so they're like, oh, I hate big pharma. I'm going to go turn to like the holistic market, the supplements, which do nothing for you except manipulate your hormones, and they're full of caffeine. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm tired and I'm fatigued, which means I'm vitamin D deficient or magnesium deficient. So I'm going to take this magnesium pill, which is full of synthetic magnesium as well as caffeine, and then you feel a surge of energy. You think you're healed. You think you've just balanced yourself out. No, you just caused imbalances and you just manipulate your hormones. No different than cannabis. All that does is manipulate your endocrine system. And it weakens your body. And it displaces ecosystems because you see the fields and fields of marijuana out there. Yeah, that displaced a bunch of animals. And I'm sure there's a lot of environmentalists that love the cannabis. Now, I'm not knocking it for a temporary thing. Every medication and every holistic remedy should only be temporary until you strengthen your body to where you are actually reversing the aging process, not just disappearing your symptoms indefinitely until you pass away, which is basically the mindset of all the people that are taking on these holistic and allopathic remedies. Okay? We should not be relying on medications or the holistic market indefinitely. And so, I'm seeing these fear of the RFID chips and yeah, on a weak body, you are going to sustain pacemakers, RFID chips, implants, anything that's foreign to the body, viruses. So don't be afraid of the RFID chip for those of you that are like, oh my God, the end times are going to chip us and track us. They're already tracking us through our phone. They already know what's going on through social media. They already know what's going on through your driver's license. Stop with the fear around the RFID chip. It's totally nonsense. Nobody's going to chip you without you knowing it, because a strong body would not take on an implant regardless. Weak bodies take on implants because they have a very weak immune system, so the body isn't rejecting it. I try to tell this to some people on some of these pages. They're like, you're not a medical doctor. Where's your medical degree? You don't need a medical degree to understand how the immune system works. You don't need a medical degree to understand that you apply pressure on a wound that's bleeding. You don't need a medical degree to go take a medication that you need to deal with something that is abnormal that's been prescribed to you. You don't need a medical degree to know that if you're thirsty, you drink water. People are crazy. And their only argument is, oh, you don't have a medical degree. I'm sorry, but there is common sense out there, which is severely lacking. And there's so much information on the internet. You don't need a freaking medical degree to understand how most of the world works. But people who don't do their own research, which is like, I hear that, oh, do your research, but it depends on what kind of research and where you're looking. Do you have the discernment to know to separate the bullshit from the actual good stuff? And most people don't have that capacity, so their only go-to in an argument is, you don't have a medical degree, you didn't go to school for this, so therefore nothing that you say is relevant. Well, they're only reflecting back their own deficiencies, their own inability to process information. That's all they're doing. Okay? So whatever on that. That was just something. But so anyways, so this is why the FDA, the CDC, all of these government agencies, watchdog agencies, are cracking down on the holistic market and cracking down the naturopathics that are administering herbs to people, to the general population, because they don't know what people bring to the table. And so and then some of you, like, I'm seeing Dwayne Hepner, he's part of the new NUU group. Group. I know they're very anti-vax. And I understand you making this correlation as causation, that vaccines have caused all of these issues in humanity. But I want to clarify something for you. You take away the vaccines, you're still exposed to the viruses that are in animals, that are in ponds, bacteria that are, and humans have also mutated viruses and pathogens. You take away the medical community, viruses will still be there. Viruses have been around. Viruses and pathogenic bacteria have been around way before man. They were the first living organisms before man came around. Okay? So if you want to know what caused the degradation in humanity, it's the ignorance. So biotechnology, they're not perfect, okay, but they're dealing with a spectrum of different bodies. They have helped people live longer because people died a lot younger back in the Dark Ages, back in the 1500s. if you had a weak body exposed to a pandemic like the bubonic plague, you were done with. You were gone. Babies were born stillborn. Mothers died at childbirth because they didn't have the strength to bear babies. And so what they found in, in Europe, back in the Renaissance period, that there's a way to manipulate your immune system if you're not going to, and they don't know how to strengthen. They just know you eat food, you have a certain shelf life based upon your environment and then the food that you eat. So they figured out how to give people a layer of protection, regardless of your belief system. So that way, if you have some weak pathogen in your body, because you're already exposed to the aggressive pathogen out there, that's why they have the vaccines, then at least your body will give off antibodies, give you some layer of protection. So when you do get exposed to that virus, you're not gonna die from it, essentially. Because weak bodies exposed to like the Ebola virus without any kind of layer of protection would die. Now, somebody that's strong and exposed to the Ebola virus, well, that's not gonna really do too much. Okay, just like when somebody's exposed to HIV, but they don't come up positive on the HIV titer test, doesn't mean that they don't have the antibody. It just means that it didn't have enough antibodies to trigger a positive to make you think that one day you're going to have AIDS. Because that's exactly what these titer tests and getting tested for all these different diseases is, to see if you have a lot of antibodies that are then going to culminate and turn it and agglutinate and turn into the actual disease. And then the other side of it is that, they want to see a layer of protection. And so they want people to get vaccinated so they can show that you have some kind of protection and you're not a walking pathogenic person, and that you won't die from an exposure from some foreigner that has all these aggressive pathogens. Okay, so there is a method behind all this madness. Biotech is not necessarily the evil. Ignorance is what's evil out there. Okay, and applying the antibiotic programming on very weak bodies this generation is the wrong programming. And the conspiracy theorists and the anti-government people are spinning this information, which further causes more ignorance in our society. So these people who have very weak immune systems, denying the vaccines on their kid, not wanting to change their lifestyle, don't know about strategic nutrition, they're sitting ducks for any aggressive pathogen that's out there, just like those natives in the middle of the Atlantic. That Christian missionary is being now indicted for or convicted of genocide, because he actually went with all of his pathogens, went on an island full of natives that have never been exposed to Western culture and Western pathogens, is now being, hauled off and potentially indicted for genocide, because all of his pathogens would decimate that whole population. This is why we do not take our bodies into areas that have never been exposed to our pathogens. And this is why the vaccine industry exists, because it is a transition to a society. Because mutations can make you strong, right? Because this is how our modern man has been able to adapt to our environment, is the mutations have made us strong to adapt to the environment. But then too many mutations on a weak body can't handle the programming, which is why we see aging and cancer, disease, and chronic illness. Too many mutations will then cause the death. So it's all about balance. There's a spectrum. When you're born, you can't get the vaccines right off the bat, so they wait however many months, and then you get the vaccines. But then when you are 85 years old, 95 years old, on a weak body, you would not be a candidate for any type of treatments in the medical industry, as well as any vaccine, because your body wouldn't be able to handle it. So this is why, if you can handle the vaccines, if you're in your 30s, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you can handle the vaccine schedule, then you can handle your environment. We're not trying to create, and this is the thing right now with the way we are, the current belief systems with the anti-vaxxers and the holistic people and all that stuff, we're creating a next generation of bubble children. and you create a next generation of bubble children, they won't be able to handle anything. Society is going to advance regardless of how you feel about it. Yes, 5G is going to happen. Okay? Advanced technology is going to happen. Humans have adapted for centuries to their environment. Okay, whether it's climate change, to advancement of technology, to the industrial industry and the industrial age, to the fracking, to the oil industry, to transportation, to pathogens, humans have been able to adapt. If you can't adapt to our current society today, because those of you that are on Facebook are taking part in the 5G, in the Wi-Fi, in modern society, if you cannot adapt to your environment, you will pass away. Yes, you will. And those of you doing Jeju still afraid of the 5G, you're actually laying the groundwork, weakening your flock. Because a lot of you are leaders and influential in your community, and you're doing the Jejus. So you know you're strengthening your body, but you're not giving that opportunity to your people that you are influencing, telling them to be afraid of the vaccines, afraid of the 5G, afraid of Monsanto, afraid of everything. They're not doing the Jejus, and so they nix the vaccines. They don't take any medications. They don't do anything, and they're a sitting duck, and they have weak bodies because reproduction comes from mutations, comes from weak bodies, and we have generational weak bodies, and now we are seeing even a weaker population. Millennials are weaker. I already see my own generation, the Generation X, watching my high school friends, people that are the same age as me, dropping like flies. 30-year-olds are being diagnosed with diabetes at a younger age, at this age. What's next after diabetes? Oh, a lot of things are next after that. We really have to start changing the programming. And it does start with you. And it's understanding the application of Jeju so you can change the programming. So I've watched all my viruses being purged out, going through the healing, going through all of the body, mind, and spirit upset of homeostasis. And I've changed the programming. Now I'm not going to have any kids because I have no desire to have kids. I have a dog that I'm going to keep alive for as long as I'm alive. Okay? And so the only way I can pass this down to the next generation is to talk to all of you. So every single one of you, whether you're in the post-war generation, World War II generation, okay, to those of you in Generation X, Y, Z, Millennial, whatever, you all have the opportunity to change the course of where humanity is going, okay? And so you strengthen your body, you'll be able to derive benefit from all the different viruses. You may be able to derive benefit from the Ebola virus. Maybe the Ebola virus actually has amazing properties to it on a strong body. But on weak bodies, the Ebola virus will decimate a person. That's how we're viewing viruses now, because viruses have shown through research that it could be the missing link between the Neanderthals and Homo sapien. Because you know that mutations that happen, let's say I go outside and I get a bunch of sun. Well, guess what? My body starts tanning. Melanin gets created because it's adjusting to the change in my environment just by going out in the sun. And that melanin protects from the excess UV rays. Those of you on weak bodies would not be able to create that melanin, so you have to cover yourself because you're extremely pale. You're not creating melanin. If you create too much melanin, then there's an imbalance, and this is where cancer disease and chronic illness comes into play as well. So mutations in the right context can be very, very beneficial. In the wrong context, it can be very detrimental, and that's based upon what you bring to the table. So I'm trying to impress upon those of you who are very influential to really propagate Jejus and to exemplify what the Jilly Juice is doing for you, because you're going to have to go through pain. Gone are the days where you can avoid and play the avoidance game and play I'm going to live in a bubble game, because that's not a reality. Living in a bubble is not a reality. No matter how much you want to have your own little biodome away from all of modern society, I'm sorry, if you're on the internet, you're part of modern society. You might as well just face reality and not play the living in a bubble avoidance game. It's time for you to grow up and learn how to adapt to your surroundings. And don't set your flock up to fail. So yeah, the lawsuits against Monsanto is a reflection on how weak our society is today in the presence of a conglomeration of elements that were not pathogenic 20 or 40 years ago. Today, they may trigger the weaknesses in some people. So anyone that gets lymphoma from what they think is from the Roundup, because they were around Roundup, they already had the Epstein-Barr virus in their body, which could potentially be good on a strong body, but on a weak body, the Epstein-Barr virus is going to wreak havoc. And then when you are around elements that further weaken your body because you're not strengthening your body, guess what? Your exposure to whatever conglomeration of elements, whether it's glyphosate or radiation or anything else that you're around, would then trigger lymphoma. There are no viruses in Roundup, okay? Cancer is from viruses out of control. And then what you do on a daily basis is going to determine whether or not you're strengthening your body or further weakening it. And this is why it's so scary to see the cannabis industry just go full throttle. Recreational cannabis to medicinal marijuana. I'm all for recreational on a strong body. Hey, that's fine. Just like ayahuasca on a strong body, fine. Go play with your hormones. I don't care. But on weak bodies, it's not. It's going to be a scary thing. It's already scary. You're already seeing predators all over the internet. You already seeing the predators coming to surface. The Jeffrey Epsteins, the bullies on the internet that target people. You're already seeing the viral programming manifesting in a weak population. And it's going to get worse before it gets better unless we go and change that trajectory. And it takes all of you who are influential in your community. Okay, luckily I have about 333 people in my secret public Facebook group who are exemplifying. Not all of them. Some of them are exemplifying what the J juice is doing for them. They're seeing major changes in their body. And don't think because, oh, they have, a different DNA than me that they'll get the benefit, but I won't. No, nobody is special. You are not that special. The industry wants to make you think you're special so they can, well, I don't want to say so they can administer drugs, but people think that they're too special because they want to feel like they're different, that they wouldn't get the benefits of this thing. Their disease is so different than somebody else's disease. Why we have very rare diseases because we have so many mutations or so many viruses that are out there that when they get together, they create then new diseases. People who get sick mutate these viruses and pathogens, and then new diseases get created. I mean, Down syndrome comes from the infection of the central nervous system. Okay? Autism is from viruses. Mothers having herpes and HPV in mothers and fathers. It gets passed down to the child. The child has then progressive cognition degradation. They want to say that their kid is not weak or not. No, if you can't take care of yourself, if you're not hitting your milestones and you can't take care of yourself, you have cellular degradation. That could potentially be reversed and fixed, but people don't want to do that. They think that what they have, what they're born with, what their kid is born with, what they're born with is the end all be all. It's permanent. And I'm going to say, no, it's not. Aging is not permanent. it could be reversed, but you have to do the work. And that's what the J juice is that you have to do the work. Not everybody's ready to do the work because they don't want to change their lifestyle. They want to still keep drinking alcohol. They still want to keep doing their drugs. They still want to have all of their social standing in their community. And so they refuse to change anything. And this is why you have generational issues. And then you have every generation becomes weaker and weaker because no one's changing the program. And these mutations will compound every generation because every time you reproduce, it's on a weak body. And then you have new diseases out there that people are being exposed to, and it further degrades them. And you have to get a vaccine because not everybody can withstand the environment because they have a weak body. They're getting their tonsils taken out. They're getting organs taken out. That further mutates and weakens the body. The tonsils are the first line of defense against any viruses taken by mouth. You take away tonsils, you've just now killed off the line of defense. Now the body is absorbing those viruses and causing mutations in the body. You take away any organ, you are further weakening your body. The infinite fractals, you've seen those memes where there's like a continuous like circular where it goes out and out and out and out and out and out like a wheel turning. That's what the human cellular structure is in the right conditions. It can continuously regenerate. But we have applied the wrong programming that people have an actual shelf life. They're embracing their cancer. Cancer is their spirit animal. I want to keep slapping my head when I keep seeing that person who is embracing their cancer and basically adopting it as their spirit animal. I'm like, oh my God, don't adopt cancer as your spirit. You basically are embracing death. You could potentially reverse that. You don't have to die from pancreatic cancer. You don't have to die from old age. You don't have to die from anything, really, if you understand how to apply the elements. You don't have to die from a staph infection when you can easily put lactobacillus and cabbage, water, and salt fermented on your leg to stop the leakage because you have an out of control bacteria on your leg and you're leaking all of this pus all over the floor that you can't even walk. You don't have to die from that, but people are choosing to die from all of their weaknesses. It's and let me tell you, you guys are going to be watching this, and it's going to go faster. Because remember, the universe is ever unfolding, and it unfolds faster and faster. It's expanding. So you could either change the direction of the expansion of death, which is then the viruses expanding, or you change that trajectory and you expand and you regenerate on a continuous basis. And if you're not, you're going to let that other entity take over and keep expanding and be like a black hole or supernova. So yeah, so I'm watching this on the internet and I'm like, fuck, it sucks because you can predict all this stuff. You can predict in families what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. People are going to give you clues exactly where they are on their life spectrum. And every single diagnosis is a red flag. And you know, with their lifestyle, it's only going to expound and it's going to accelerate. Because once cancer, disease, and chronic illness gets a hold of you, it's not going to stop unless you change the programming. But you have to understand what kind of programming to apply. And playing the avoidance game of being anti-vax and pretending that you're going to create this utopian society and not understand you have to adopt to the society that you live in, and you can, then yeah, you're going to succumb to your environment. See, so this is why we have to really understand how to apply Jeju so anybody can adapt to whatever they are in, whatever society they're in, whether in India, Africa, wherever. Living off grid, no, that's not the answer. I mean, because still, when you go off grid, or when you go and create your own commune, you're still displacing animals. You're still kicking up the dust in your environment. You still got to build houses. You still got to do something with your waste material. You still have access to the internet. So you might as well learn how to adapt. And yeah, you can have like your own little community, but don't fool yourself into thinking that you're living better than somebody else who lives in the inner city that doesn't adapt your specific belief system. Okay? Like I said, organic, independent farmers who sell their fruits and vegetables are no different than big agri, because you're both exploiting the land for personal gain. And even if you just tilled the garden and gave it all away, it's still doing a very direct transaction. You haven't helped the environment any. You haven't helped the people any. You know how many people that are vegans and vegetarians on mutated bodies eating organic food still dying? So what did you contribute to? You contributed to the consumption of our society. And that's why I was saying a couple transmissions ago that, what was I saying a couple transmissions ago? That organic farmers and hunters are no different because they still exploit, and that you need to produce more than you consume. And most people consume way more than they produce, which is our credit-based system, the financing, the asking for the GoFundMe accounts. When I see somebody that has cancer, major cancer, and they're having these GoFundMe accounts, or somebody gets into an accident and they have these GoFundMe accounts. I get it. Yeah, you don't have anything on reserve. You're not able to produce. But now you're asking them to take a little bit of themselves and give it to you, and maybe you might survive, maybe you don't. And if they do contribute to your GoFundMe account, what are you doing to show that you're going to change the programming so that money is going to somebody that's going to continuously live? See, this is why it's important to know that these charities that are out there are going towards the negative programming, the antibiotic programming, another protocol that will only give you a temporary benefit, if at all. So if you're going to contribute to somebody that's changed the programming. Contribute to somebody that's on Jilly Juice, that is changing their programming actively and helping other people. Why contribute to these charities and these people who have no intention to change their life? And so you're throwing your energy and your money into a black hole or to a supernova, because they're just going to explode at some point anyways. And not explode with life, but they're going to fizzle out like a supernova, like a star. Anyway, I don't know. That's just my ramblings for the day. But I mean, you guys, the internet is your source to understand. Facebook is your source to understand the types of people that live in your society. You will see the viral programming that goes on. People who are on a life trajectory, people are on a death trajectory. You see the criminals that are out there. Okay? You see even potential criminals in process. Some hide behind sock accounts, others are in your face, don't care. Understand how these viruses manifest in humanity. And I'm sure biotech, the FBI, CIA, all of these different government organizations that are watching the people are profiling all of us as we speak, so they can figure and further predict who would potentially commit a crime and who wouldn't. The activists have the potential to commit a crime because they have no regard for the law. So if you're an activist, that is a type of profile. Activists break laws all the time because they justify it. Oh, I'm trying to save humanity. I'm trying to save this person, save that person. The law doesn't mean anything. That's who it is that the FBI really should be profiling, and they probably are. And this is probably why the holistic professional that was administering all these herbal supplements and herbal remedies and herbal protocols on dying bodies was getting death threats, because I know that those things are detrimental to a weak body. This is why we have to now think with the whole right probiotics. So I can't even say that jelly juice is a probiotic because people will think, oh, probiotic, oh yeah, apple cider vinegar, kombucha, alcohol, anything that produces lactobacillus, yogurt. Okay, I'll just eat yogurt for the rest of my life. I'll just drink a shit ton of apple cider vinegar. No, no, no. There are wrong probiotics in our society. And you're seeing the commercials out there, you're seeing the holistic and mainstream media propagate the whole probiotic supplement, pills, powders, and shakes. And so people think, oh yeah, I'll just take this Dole probiotic juice, but it's what it's paired with is the difference. You take a probiotic supplement or a shake that tastes yummy because sweet stuff tastes yummy, but even a vinegar like apple cider vinegar, which doesn't taste yummy, it actually is detrimental over a long period of time. Anything like those types of probiotics are very short term. They anesthetize you, and then the virus and the programming, fine, you don't have those symptoms anymore in that area, but then it goes and shapeshifts and then finds another area to go and exploit. And so all you're doing when you're dealing with those types of probiotics, the sugar probiotics and the vinegar probiotics, you're playing whack-a-mole with every single one of your symptoms until you pass away. So the probiotics in J juice is lactobacillus, of course. It's paired with electrolytes because it's the salt and the minerals. It's paired with the cabbage and kale, cruciferous vegetables. And we know that cabbage and kale have high amounts of dense nutrients. You can't go wrong with high amounts of dense nutrients. Cabbage and sauerkraut is all over the world. Okay? It's already been proven in other contexts. So then when you liquefy this sauerkraut to where you can drink it, that's massive amounts of nutrients. Then you got to deal with the body having these mini explosions called the Big Bang, creating life. Pain. You are expressing the prostaglandin hormone, which gives you the pain sensation, and it aids in the healing process. And some of you are very adverse to pain, which I get it. We've been taught to be adverse to pain, always anesthetized. You can still bring in some of your painkillers, of course, your prescription drugs, and other methods to kind of manage the pain a little bit without going overboard. So you can still heal but not be completely miserable throughout the process. But if you can handle the first trimester on J juice and you keep pushing the envelope on J juice, you will be fine. Right now, I took my ferments. I've been sitting out indefinitely since like June 14th. And I had to put it in the fridge because little bugs were like, because they're not totally sealed like 100%. But all the solids are at the bottom, so there's no mold. It's just the salt and the lactobacillus in the liquid with the solids at the bottom, and it's still covered. But my locking mechanisms are more. They don't give off too much of a smell. So I stuck it in the fridge, and I'm drinking it, and it really actually tastes good. My dog, I don't actually put it in her food anymore. Actually, I just give her some people food, her kibble, and whatever else I have, whatever I'm eating. Then I take a cotton ball full of the juice and I just drip it down her throat. So she gets a concentration of it. And that's great. And it gives her the zoomies. She's like, boom, boom, boom. Okay. So the J juice is the right probiotic. It is the correct probiotic. Anything else, the kombuchas, the fermented fruits and the kombuchas, they actually will destroy your teeth because the amount of sugar in the fermented, like in the kombuchas, the fermented fruit, like the passion fruit and the peach kombuchas and all that, that will also feed your candida, which is your yeast overfed. And candida lowers your immune system, and it leaves you open for the viruses to go and exploit the weaknesses in your body. Yeah, Zumi's like your grandma. Yeah, absolutely, Krista. Okay, so you don't want to have milk as a fermentation lactobacillus product. You don't want to have kombucha as that lactobacillus product. You don't want to have apple cider vinegar on massive amounts on your body because that will destroy you because it's fermented ethanol. It's carcinogenic. Okay? Now people use apple cider vinegar to wash or to deal with clogs in their toilet. With baking soda and apple cider vinegar, you can actually use that to unclog some of your plumbing issues, but not on your body. Do not be using lemon juice and lemon water because that's antibiotic. High alkaline water is antibiotic. It will lower your immune system, allowing the viruses to go and exploit the weaknesses. And then people get cancer and they age. So this is why the J juice, you have to understand what is antibiotic, what is not. And then we do play the discrimination game in the beginning. And then down the road, you could eat whatever you want and you won't have the negative consequences like the people who are playing the avoidance game. You can get a vaccine or not get a vaccine and still be able to withstand and adapt to your environment. See, those on the J juice are not going to fear the vaccines, the GMO, the chemtrails, the 5G, they're not going to, the pollution, they're not going to fear anything because they understand how to keep the balance in their body with the right elements. And they understand pain. They understand it's a process. And I'm so happy to see some of the response in my group with people going through the pain process. They went through anger. They went through major chronic fatigue. I went through it too. You're going to have things come to surface. The viruses, I had to deal with the viruses last week, the chronic fatigue the last couple of weeks. I'm like, damn, I'm like, why am I so tired? And it's not what I ate, and it's not my environment. I know that I'm purging viruses, and I've got a skin issue that came to surface very briefly. And now it's just a hard nod, not this painful thing that it was. So my body is bringing to surface things that are deeply embedded that through my belief system and practices the last 40 something years suppressed and kept it. Because if I were to stay on the trajectory I was prior to the J juice protocol, I probably would have triggered some kind of lymphoma, some kind of cancer, some kind of disease. And you see it in all your friends and family, people that are getting older, they are contracting cancer, disease, and chronic illness, weaknesses, diabetes, heart issues, heart murmurs, heart problems, brain problems. Okay, so now with the J juice, it's addressing those things that would cause all of those issues. But not everybody can do this because they don't have the strength to heal. People in hospice would not be able to do this J juice unless they had a very amazing support system and they understand even through their fog of being in hospice. Because when you're in hospice, you are dying. You would have to have an amazing support system if you're in hospice and you decide to do this J juice, because you'd be in pain and somebody in that world would have to understand this and not freak out. But what they do with people in hospice who are in major amounts of pain is they apply them with morphine and painkillers, and that would then take them over the edge. Okay, because pain is the body trying to heal. Pain is weakness leaving the body, but people misunderstand it and then they apply the wrong programming and then further degrades them, leaves them open and for more viruses and pathogens to exploit and parasites. So if you are watching me right now and you're relatively strong, you can do this protocol if you understand what to expect. And you'll go off the diet, you'll eat a cake, you'll do certain things that are not on the protocol. It happens, whatever. Drink a bunch of the juice. Every single time you go off the diet, you drink a bunch of the juice. Okay? And that's what I do. Even though I'm very healthy relative to the rest of the population, I don't necessarily have to drink a bunch of my juice if I eat a piece of cake. But I do, because I want to get into that habit of every single time, because everything is sugar. Everything is made up of either sugar, salt, minerals, air, or water. That's it. But it comes in different forms. It comes into cakes. It comes into macaroni and cheese, but it's still salt, sugar, or converts to sugar, minerals, air, and water. Okay? So, I mean, nutrients are in there too, but that's part of the, the minerals. Nutrients are minerals. So if everything can be broken down to basically the periodic tables, then all of the food supply, when people are demonizing sugar, well, you need sugar. You need it. You need sugar. You need glucose. Then people are like, oh, well, it's the type of sugar. It's the organic versus the, I don't know, the processed bleached white. It doesn't matter. Though people will say, yeah, it does matter. It's fructose versus processed sugar. It doesn't matter. You drink the J juice, it doesn't matter whatever sugar, because you're not going to eat just processed sugar. I mean, as far as just the white sugar. You're going to have a diverse, you're going to eat pasta. You're going to have a bread, grains like rice that has nutrients. You're going to have potatoes. You're going to have, I don't know, yams. You're going to have all these different things that would convert to sugar. Okay? So that's why we have such a diverse food supply. And so processed food then is not something you're afraid of anymore. You're like, oh yeah, these are just minerals. But how much minerals is really then the question. And then your body will let you know, well, that's too many minerals. So when I ate the box of macaroni and cheese, the one from Kraft, which I totally love, it's so good. I ate a whole box of that. Well, I had to poop almost immediately right afterwards. Not like diarrhea, but I mean, probably a couple hours later, my body's like, okay, that's too many minerals, okay? We're going to get rid of the excess. So sometimes you can be over mineralized by some of the processed foods because it's all minerals. Yeah, you look at the ingredients like, oh yeah, that's a chemical. Of course, it's a mineral. Your body needs it. When you breathe the air, you're like, oh yeah, they're the chemtrails. Your body needs the barium. Your body needs all of the mercury and all that stuff. And then the body will also release any excess. No different than when you eat food. Even, I mean, people that are eating a vegan, vegetarian, diet, they're so weak. So weak. Yeah, okay, they can build their muscles because they're manipulating their immune system and their hormones to then create big muscles. But believe me, you put them out there doing labor-intensive work, they wouldn't have the endurance because they don't have the strength. They look cute, they have six-pack, but they would be ineffective in an endurance type of situation. So don't let somebody's muscles fool you into thinking that they're strong. Just because you have sculpted body and sculpted muscles doesn't mean you're healthy. You just look like it because we have this perception of health is sculpted muscles and body. But believe me, you put them in a situation where they have to deal with stress and they wouldn't be able to handle it because their body wasn't trained for that. They're only dealing with the muscles, but nothing else. Okay? So don't let the people that work out fool you into thinking that they're healthy because they're not. That's some of the deception in the holistic industry. So every single food out there is basically made up of sugar, salt, minerals, air, and water. And when you understand that, you understand balance, you understand that you have an elemental composition. The first 9 elements of the elemental composition of the human body is electrolytes, air, and water. And the last like 20 or 40 or whatever it is trace minerals. And then your body will excrete any excess and it will absorb what it needs to make sure that all of your cells are regenerating indefinitely. Okay? And then as far as reproduction, body's on a death trajectory, reproduction kicks in. I don't care what you subscribe to as far as attraction. If you can produce a sperm or an egg and you have the ability to carry or create life, you're human and you can carry the human species forward if there is a threat of extinction, which is basically a dying body. All the other politics around that is just noise. It's all the divide and conquer BS that we have been living with for the last however many years. So if you have a particular issue with any lifestyle, check yourself. Now, I had my own, I don't know, through my research that came up on Dr. Phil, I was going through and figuring out what was normal as far as humanity. and still was caught up in the politics of all the different lifestyles. And within the last, I would say, 6 months, not only was I breaking down what all the foods are and everything else in our society to this, but I also broke down what the biochemical construct of humanity is. And it's not all the different lifestyle, political names, and political platforms. The biodiversity has a specific purpose. If you are 100% healthy, it's not going to need to drop seeds. If it's not 100% healthy, it's going to drop seeds, regardless of what. So yeah, they're making test tube babies. Okay, they're doing that. Okay, whatever. Who cares? They're having artificial wombs put in people. Okay, who cares? They have surrogate mothers. Okay, great. Don't do the protocol until you carry that baby to term. If you're taking on somebody else's egg, because that is a foreign object, because it's somebody else's DNA in your body. But then after you bring that baby to term and you give somebody that beautiful present of life, then do the J juice. Strengthen your body. Bring everything back to what it was. All right. That's it, guys, for today. Okay? So if you want to take part in my discussion forum, that is the secret public Facebook group that I do have trolls in there screenshotting stuff, and those are our predators in our society, are those trolls that screenshot all of our information in there and they put it into a group and they all make fun of it. Those are the future predators. Those are the actual predators in our society. Some of those people will commit crimes like Jeffrey Epstein because they're already exhibiting the characteristics of a Jeffrey Epstein and those points in between. We have those people in my group. I don't know who they are. So remember, anything that you post in my group is subject for a predator to go and capitalize and titillate the other predators that they hang out with. Okay? So be careful what you post because it will be consumed by predators who exhibit the characteristics of the Jeffrey Epsteins in our society. All right? So understand the world that you live in, protect yourself, do the J juice, don't deal with trolls, and understand that pain is healing. And warn your children of these predators all over Facebook and all over the internet. Because if children get caught up in the bullying, you are setting them up to be that potential future predator. Because as soon as they get comfortable exploiting somebody else's weaknesses, they will exhibit that in a much more advanced form. And we don't want to create bullies in our society that will turn into the Jeffrey Epsteins that is now being brought to justice after 20 fucking years. Going through 2 sitting presidents, Clinton and Obama. It took Trump to get this out. Regardless of how it came out, it took Trump to get someone like Jeffrey Epstein out in the open so people understand who these predators are. And now we're seeing the characteristics being exhibited by people on Facebook. Watch the people on Facebook who are targeting and attacking people. Those are the people that we don't want to associate with. Don't feed the trolls. Have a good day.